And so you have done all sorts of fix and flips. You've done commercial, residential, multifamily. But the last thing that we talked about and I wanted to mention today was modular homes and like kind of what the future is, you think, in putting together some of these prefabbed homes. It's changed so much from what I think people used to think about. So what's your experience?
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
Hello. It's Jennifer Hammond. I have Billy here with me, and he has done all sorts of real estate. So today, and we're going to talk about some cool stuff today. But first of all, I wanted to just say welcome to the podcast, Billy.
Thank you.
And so you have done all sorts of fix and flips. You've done commercial, residential, multifamily. But the last thing that we talked about and I wanted to mention today was modular homes and like kind of what the future is, you think, in putting together some of these prefabbed homes. It's changed so much from what I think people used to think about. So what's your experience?
So modular has actually been around for 50 years. I actually recognize modular. I've got family that lives in Europe, and I used to go on vacation to go visit my family. And this was like 30, 35 years ago. And as I was like leaving the airport and going towards my family's home, I would notice that there was a building that's being put together. And like a week later, by the time I was leaving back to the airport, the building was up. And I was like, how did that happen? So I started doing some research and I realized that people actually build buildings in factories. And I was amazed, that people will actually do something like that. So I decided to go and visit some factories. So I visited some factories in Europe and I saw how they do things. It's like a massive warehouse. It's probably about, some of them are like 3-4 stories tall, and they build a full building in the factory. And then they take it apart. Yes. They take it apart, they put it on a truck, they bring it to the site, and they put it back together. I've got little children, and my little children play with Legos, and it's very similar to that. But what's amazing is that, when you go into the building in a factory, you're actually walking in a building. You see the elevator shaft. You don't see the cab, but you see the shaft. You see all the electricals, all the plumbing, the stairs are there. The walls are painted. And I've seen some projects, I've actually worked in some projects where they actually put the furniture in. We were working on a hotel a couple of years ago that the toilet paper was on the ring. The mattress, the beds had the bed spring on it, like the rooms were locked. And by the time they transported it and brought it to the site, all they had to do was open a door and rent it. It was all done. So I was just amazed by it. And that's how I got involved.
Well, and so the one question that comes to mind that people ask all the time is, so they think of a modular home. A lot of times when that comes up, they think, oh, you're talking about like a trailer or like a mobile home that goes in one of those little mobile home parks.
Yeah.
And you mentioned hotels and big buildings. So talk a little bit about how the construction is different than some kind of what people would think about on like a mobile home or a trailer.
Well, modular is actually a definition of a form of construction. That's what it is. So you're using the same materials that if you were to do what they call stick build, using the same steel, the same wiring, the same concrete, none of the materials change, but you're actually building the building.
Well, and I think it's interesting because from what I have seen on it as well, is that it's done so well when it's built inside the factory. And partly because I always cringe when I go by a construction site, and I've been in Washington, D.C. for almost 30 years, and then in Florida, back and forth between the two. And both places, as you know, have mold and all sorts of other things. And when I see like all of a sudden it's a construction site that's covered in snow or covered in rain or covered in whatever from the weather. And then I'm like, oh dear, this looks like and again, I've had friends who have had moved into a brand new home and then had awful health problems. And we find out that a lot of that has to do with, mold that was behind the wall that nobody could see and all
Right.
sorts of things. So my viewpoint and my understanding of a modular home and the idea of having it built inside a massive warehouse and then delivered and put wherever it's supposed to be, from my viewpoint, just seems like such a more sensible way to do it. But I'm curious on what your thoughts are on that.
It is. It has limitations, and some people have the wrong perception about it. Some people think that it's cheaper, and it's not necessarily cheaper, but there is a savings. And let me explain to you how that works. The materials are the same, so you're not going to get a break over there. The
Right.
difference is that you have to pay for transportation, from the factory to the location, which is an additional cost, which you do not have to pay in conventional development. But
Right.
the benefits are that if it took, I'm in New York City, it takes an average of, let's say, 2 years to build a building, right? But through modular, I can do it in 1 year, which means your construction financing, your interest that you're going to pay is only for 1 year. So that's a substantial savings. Also, you can get your tenants, or you could start moving into your property sooner, which means that you can time the market better than saying that if I did conventional as 3 years, I don't know what kind of rents I'm going to get. So you save money with that. Other than that, the construction of modular is so flexible. There's so many things that you can do, that it's probably the smartest way to do things, but it's not right for every single project.
I think that that's true with most things. Is that, you need to know that what's right for one project is not necessarily right for another. And I would also say that, geographically, if you're in the Northeast, what you're doing is not always the same and is not always the best for a place that might be in Florida or in California. And again, I've been mostly on the East Coast, not so much on the West Coast, but just to always know that everything has its limitations, but also you just need to know what's right for that particular area. And I love what you just said, I think is brilliant, in that we need to also look at what is the cost. Not only, you talked about the interest. So like if you're financing the construction and it takes you 1 year instead of 2 years, that's huge savings.
Yes,
But
yes,
also the time, your market is totally different in 1 year versus in 2 years. And I don't know
correct,
if the market's going up or the market's going down. It's just
right.
different. And so no understanding, building for what people want now versus, 2 years from now, it's different. So anyway, I love the module, and I think it's something that everybody should look into. And so I'm curious on your idea of the future. Do you think that there are going to be more and more modules all over the world, or do you think it'll only be for limited things?
No, absolutely not. United States is actually behind compared to other parts of the world, specifically Europe and our East and other parts of the world
Singapore.
that have a lot more advancement when it comes to modular construction. I think that we're going to catch up to the rest of the world. There are so many different ways of modular. So I know of people that do like modular kitchens. There's all kinds of kitchens. And if you're going to build a building, let's just say with 100 apartments in it, and you have to build 100 kitchens, you can order that from the factory and they just pop them in, which is also saving you a lot of time. And these kitchens are not low-end kitchens. They come all the way across, all the way up to high-end. So there's various different versions of modular, but I clearly believe that it's the way of the future and it's going to be more popular. In addition to that, if you live in a metropolitan area and you see cranes all over the place and you see delivery trucks coming in and out, dropping off material, blocking traffic, annoying the neighbors and all of that, that's another benefit of modular. I'm going to tell you a quick story. There is an individual that had a penthouse apartment in Manhattan and owned the rooftop. You know, they had their deck up there, but they want to double the size of their apartment. So they ordered a modular from us, and it was 2,000 square feet, which is the average size home, I think, of the United States, or maybe slightly bigger. And we were able to get that up. We delivered that piece of module at 8 o'clock in the morning. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we were driving away, which meant that that person went to work and they only had one level. They came home and the second level was already up. There was no deliveries. There was no, construction or blocking traffic going on for months at a time. It was really simple. And that's another great benefit.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that story, because I think that that's really important to, again, look at modular homes and don't think of A equals A, because I listen to people and they immediately think a modular home means a trailer in like a trailer park in Florida. And I'm like, what? So, but I understand the differences. Again, if you're not in it, you may not understand how unique it is and how special, and again, those advantages. So it's not perfect for everybody, but definitely a very, very important thing. So thank you so much for being here today. Would you like to share where people could find out more?
Sure. You can email me directly at ventureexchange@gmail.com.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that's in the notes as well. And as you know, I'm always looking for the silver lining. So I'm going to ask you to lift your voice and say yay with me as we go off the air. Okay?
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Yay!